Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 Minute Marvel. I'm your host, Petter, and today on 10 Minute Marvel, we have the change that is happening. Now have a guest or a second host for this. I'll introduce him here in a second, as well as we're going to be going through our top five MCU projects, just so that we can kind of get to know everybody's tastes. And then there's also a few news stories to talk about. But before I get to that, I want to introduce the co-host, Greg. Say hi to the audience, Greg.
Hey everybody. Thank you for having me, Petter. I've been excited to do this and yeah, I was looking forward to it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll hear a whole lot more, I'm sure, as we get into this. But as always, first, thank you for listening. I hope that you are enjoying this podcast. If you are, please consider subscribing, sharing it with friends, or leaving a rating and review. You can find the podcast over on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. So let's get to the news. And we're going to start with a couple of pieces of potential casting news. And one's more rumor, one seems to be a little bit more confirmed at this point. So let's start out with the confirmed one with Sacha Baron Cohen as some role in Ironheart, allegedly Mephisto.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, that is pretty big. And I mean, ever since WandaVision, I think a lot of the YouTube people and even myself have been speculating on Mephisto.
Yes, there's been a ton of it that I recall. And I think if that is indeed true, because it is rumored, right? It's still just kind of just floating out there a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they've seen him or he was on set for something and people are talking about it as Mephisto, but not necessarily confirmed for that role. Most likely confirmed for the show, kind of at this point.
okay, yeah. So if it is, I think that's a fantastic choice for that role. Uh, I would be a little disappointed if it was just another Borat movie and he's infringing on the MCU. That'd be a little bit disappointing and funny. So maybe it goes both ways. But yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting to have it in Ironheart because she's very much a science-based character, but I believe it was at D23 when Kevin Feige was talking about it, that he was talking about it as science meets magic or dark magic with the Hood. So I'm not super familiar with the Hood. I've seen him pop up in a few comics, but haven't spent that much time looking into his kind of backstory yet.
Yeah, I too am not very familiar with the hood either. But and that is interesting that yeah, technology meets that underworld kind of that vibe. So I'll be interested to see how they play that out if that's what goes down. So
So do you think like we might, or I should say, one theory I've seen is that maybe this is just going to be a quick introduction of Mephisto, say like an end credit scene where it's like, okay, this is where the Hood got his powers, but it doesn't matter as much in this show. And then we see Mephisto in Agatha Coven of Chaos.
that's what I was expecting to see her, and so or to see him. So mm, yeah, um, that is that is interesting. I don't know what to think about that. I'm a little uncertain of how to play that out.
Yeah, it's kind of odd to introduce maybe the big bad for another show in a completely separate show. So it's
Yeah,
probably a stretch.
yeah, uh, but I guess they've been well. I guess WandaVision. Everybody thought that that was Mephisto, right? In that the opening credits scene. Every time when it goes in between floors, right? There was all that, and so they've been dropping hints left and right. With what well, they seem to be dropping hints, but um, Like even in Homecoming, there's pictures of those devil characters, right? In Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
So to drop him in again, I could see it just as more of a, oh, here's what you've been waiting for. Here's visually what the character looks like, but not really doing a whole lot with them. It's more just of a, oh, here you go, kind of like what they did with Thanos.
Yeah, especially, or maybe if they make him more of a villain for some of the Disney Plus stuff versus the whole MCU, since we already have Kang. There's theories we're going to get Doctor Doom. So I don't know where he would fit in with that. He could potentially work on a smaller scale within some of the Disney Plus stuff to tie stuff together.
Yeah, like even just having him pop up in Loki's second season would be kind of rewarding, just because
Yeah.
it did make mention of that time, I guess, or that space. I believe more Mobius had talked about that, so
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see what they do.
Mobius had talked about the nightmare department,
Yeah. Yep.
which was a throwaway line that never got paid off, which I mean, Mephisto could definitely be behind that as well. And I think there is actually just a character called Nightmare as well.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
But
I'm I'm excited. I think either way, if that's what they do, I think he is a great choice for that, Sacha Baron Cohen, and I think that I'd be interested to see what they do with him, because he can play that, as we've talked about a little bit before, that serious role he can take on, and that mischievous role and that comical role all at the same time, which I think will play very well, um, especially in D plus shows.
yeah, Mephisto in the comics generally presents himself as somebody who isn't the devil, isn't Mephisto, to people to get them to make deals. So to have somebody who could step into a variety of different personalities, I think that would work really well. And Sacha Baron Cohen definitely can do that.
Yeah, hands down.
And so I did tease potential Doctor Doom casting news. Now, this is very much in the rumor stage. Disney regularly meets with actors kind of just to talk to them about, okay, would you be interested in doing a role like this character? In this case, they met with an actor on both Doctor Doom and Reed Richards, same actor actually, to potentially do either of those. And that's going to be Adam Driver, who you probably know best as Kylo Ren from the Star Wars films.
I don't. I'm not seeing it for Reed Richards. I honestly, I don't doubt he could do it. It's just not what I picture. I don't know why. I don't know what I picture actually for Reed Richards. I've been trying to go through this ever since John Krasinski is like, might not be that role. They're looking still that whole thing. And I'm like, who else? Because I can't picture anybody else now. And I go through like different actors, and nothing really stands out, and definitely not Adam Driver for that. However, having him in Doctor Doom now, probably I see him more of that, obviously, because Kylo Ren, right? Like I don't know, it just like shifts him into that that mask and that cloak and all that stuff. But um, I just can't see Reed Richards. I think I want somebody else, even though I'm sure he'd do an amazing job. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely lean towards Doom for him as well. I think it's a probably a simpler transition to make in my head just because he has played Kylo Ren. He has played a villain before. Obviously, Doom is more of a villainous villain, though it doesn't always present that way. I guess with Kylo, it's more of the spoiled brat villain who is just wanting to be a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy because he thinks it's cool. Whereas Doom, and actually, this is maybe an interesting tie in to something like Mephisto, unintentionally, is Doom's main motivation is to gather as much power as possible so he can bring his mother back from the afterlife. which
Oh,
is
so good. At least it's mother issues this time instead of father issues, right? It's good
yes.
if if that happens. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's better. Maybe it's better that he ends up in a Reed Richards role, like just to make it more interesting. Because I think it's just seems a little bit too close, you know, to that Darth Vader, Kylo Ren kind of thing. So I don't know. I whatever. It always ends up to be whatever they choose. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
their casting has been pretty spot on, I feel, lately. So um, yeah, especially with Kang and
Oh yeah.
Jonathan Majors, right? That's get that name right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just think whatever it is going to be, it's going to be good. I'm glad that they are talking to Adam Driver for just because he's got the chops for different roles, different types of characters. So I think he'll be good no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, if he's Doctor Doom, he's behind a mask again. And if he's Reed Richards, he already has a fairly long face. So
Yeah, less for the less for the CGI people to handle. They don't have to stretch it so far. Maybe that's what bugs me about it. It doesn't bug me, but that's what I think. Like his face is too long for Reed Richards. Maybe I think of Reed Richards as more of just like a less elongated head. Maybe that's my hang up. I don't know. It'd be weird.
yeah. Well, and I mean, with the John Krasinski cameo in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that's definitely a older feeling Reed than Adam Driver would give us. I'm not sure what their age difference is. Adam Driver is older than you probably think he is, but he looks younger. So it feels
Yeah,
a little bit different. And I've talked before, I think we've even talked about this, how I would love to see the Fantastic Four show up already with family, already with their two kids, and not have to get an origin story. Give us something very different from any of the previous two Fantastic Four projects.
yeah. With two other, films out there, I just well, was there more than two actually, right?
There's
Couple.
three
Black.
films. So the first the first one had two, and
Yep.
then there was the most recent one that had one, and technically there was one that was made in the 90s or early
Yep.
2000s.
Yeah. So technically four,
Technically four, but
but
nobody's seen that first one, and it was made
no.
only to keep the rights.
Yeah, and nobody should see it unless they just want to laugh.
Yep.
But yeah, like I don't think we need an origin story again. Um, Especially when we have two other movies that have done that, really pretty much three sort of. But so I'd be okay with them just skipping over that and just jumping right into the family. And I think most people would as well because they already get it. They already know kind of the
Yeah.
backstory of it. So
Yeah. And I think, well, to use the example of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, they are kind of an origin story for him in those three films to get it to be where he is kind of on his own as this street level superhero in New York, but we don't have the same beats that we get from the other two Spider-Man franchises. So it feels different. It doesn't feel like an origin story. We don't ever see him get bitten by a radioactive spider. We don't see Uncle Ben die. So something like that I think could work as well. Maybe a full realization of the team, or have them even be splintered apart at first, with Johnny Storm off doing his own thing, Ben Grimm kind of hiding away because of his change, and Reed and Sue kind of trying to make it work, since so much of the Fantastic Four is about family in a lot of the comics, that you then have kind of that family come back together at the end of a Fantastic Four film, and it's almost an origin story for the Fantastic Four at that point, but it's not an origin story for getting the powers.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to do that. I also think about it like having young kids as well. I'm like, well, they may not quite get it, and my kids are kind of like they're kind of falling off a little bit since the time travel stuff is really and the multiverse stuff has happened. It's a little bit above my kids, and so I feel like they're just kind of barely grasping on. And so to have a new set of characters such as and big time players such as the Fantastic Four come in, they may need that little bit of backstory. Otherwise, obviously, I can try and explain it. But it would be coming as a father perspective. I was like, yeah, maybe that would be kind of nice to have a little bit there, but do it in a way, like you said, where it doesn't have to be the same origin story where we see them. I don't know. They all like boarded the spaceship and they end up on another distant, planet realm, and whatever else happens, right? Um, um, and just make it more about the family. And if you need to kind of do a couple snapshots of what happened in the past during their flight or however they got their powers, then do that. But yeah,
So, one more piece of news, which I'm just going to cover really quickly here. A new Marvel app game has come out, Marvel Snap. I have been diving into this big time. Literally just came out, I believe, on Tuesday. And it is kind of a deck building, deck construction, card playing game where you're battling over these different areas to get as many points as possible, to have won 2 out of 3 areas, basically. It's really fun if you are a board gamer who is looking for like a little app game, something to play around with. Ton of fun, a very board game reminiscent, which I really like since I'm a huge board gamer. So highly recommend this app, and you get to collect your favorite characters too. So that's fun. But
I might try this one. Like, so we've talked about this, and you've recommended a couple other games too. Some Marvel and some not, and just board games for me and my kids because where we are, winters get kind of long and dull, and you can only go outside and make snowball forts so many times. So I might try this one out because you kind of said it's kind of simple. It's not too difficult. And it's Marvel, and I might give it a try. It sounds fun.
yeah, well, we can always touch back on the topic again and see what you think when you've had a chance to play
Yeah, I've added to my list of games and kind of prepping for the winter time. So
it. So let's go on to our main topic here and talk about our top 5 favorite MCU properties, whether they're Disney Plus shows or movies, going from 5 to 1. Mine definitely has changed since the last time I did this list, mainly because, well, my number 5, and I might as well just kick us off here, is one of the more recent Disney Plus shows, and that is going to be Miss Marvel, which I really love. Miss Marvel. They got the character so perfectly right. Aman Vellani is great as Kamala Khan. The whole kind of family dynamic is amazing. Bruno is great. Nakia is great. And yeah, there's some weird stuff going on with the villains, which felt rushed in the middle there, but I really didn't
yeah,
care because it was about Kamala Khan's journey.
I'm a little surprised at this one. Like I didn't expect you to have Ms. Marvel there in your top five. I guess I thought it was really good. I look forward to each day, the release day, and I was excited to see what they were gonna do. I agree. The villains were. I was a little confused by them, right? And I feel like they definitely could have established that more. And I think that's kind of been echoed around through other Marvel podcast um, entities out there as well on YouTube. But it was a solid show. I think it gave a lot of good history about the culture,
Yep.
and which I really appreciated that. and it was fun. I thought yeah, I think it was a really well done show. I did not have it in my top five though.
I'm not too surprised. I think that I'm probably one of the few people that would have it uh that high. For me, I think some of it too is it feels so rewatchable too. Like all the characters are just fun to hang out with. So I could see compared to some other maybe more critically acclaimed ones, I just don't see myself going back to them versus this one I could see sitting down and watching it again, and I'm really hoping for a second season.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should, and I'd be looking forward to it if they did.
All right,
Now
what's your number five?
we okay, so it can be we're talking like it can be either or, right? We're talking
Yes.
top five of everything. So I this changes honestly. You could ask me tomorrow. It's probably gonna be different. My top five pick, my number five, it was Iron Man, first one.
Ooh.
Um, and obviously, it kind of kicked it off. It was so well done. The armor was great, and it was just like that nostalgia of what I wanted from the movies and TV shows back then when I was a kid. And when I got to see that again, I don't know how old I was when that came out exactly, but all of those feelings came back, right? And I was just excited to see it on the screen and done so well, and it was exciting, and then the live action of it was great. So that's my number five.
Oh yeah, that one is a lot of fun. I think I'm trying to think on my list. My guess is it's about number 10 for me, but number 10 is still really good. I think there's 37 overall projects, 38 maybe out now.
Yeah,
I forget exact. So that's still very high up there. And yeah, it started Marvel getting the casting right with people. Like the characters really feel like the characters. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
yeah, they could depict obviously a better choice for that, and that's just shown throughout the history of him in the MCU. It's just constantly been just who you recognize him as now. So, which
All
could be
right.
good for him and bad, but yeah, whatever. He's got plenty of money to just figure it
Yep.
out.
So my number four is my other Disney Plus show on the list, and this one, the second it was announced, I was looking forward to it. Then, as more details came out about it, and I heard sitcom sort of stuff with it, I was so excited for WandaVision. That one, it just, I don't know, it's hard to describe what works for me so well with it. I think just the constantly changing world around Wanda, there's so much mystery too with that world. Like we didn't really get any concrete details as to what was happening until episode 3, which I mean was the second week of it because they dropped 2 episodes the first week.
Oh
But
yeah, that's right.
it was always trying to figure out, okay, what's happening? What's going to happen next? And then Agatha in there and Catherine Hahn was amazing. Just everything worked so well for that one, and it felt contained, yet it felt really big. I think it landed a really nice balance there of giving you little snippets of a story of a mystery as to what's going on, and then kind of leading into the rest of the MCU. Obviously, we still have White Vision around somewhere. We saw the Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We're getting Agatha Coven of Chaos. So it is reaching out far into the MCU. Also, probably doesn't help that, or doesn't hurt that it was the first thing in ages for Marvel coming off of the pandemic.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm just gonna tell you that was my number four as well.
Sweet.
Um, yeah, and I agree with all the things you had said there. It for me in this one, like you're right. It came off the pandemic, and I think it was supposed to actually be second, right? And something got pushed back, and they put was Captain supposed to be first? Captain, or sorry, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Was that
Yeah, I
supposed to
think
be
it was supposed to
first,
be
right?
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then I can't remember the order. Loki might have been supposed to be before that as well,
Yeah, yeah,
but I forget precisely. I'm assuming it
yeah,
was probably supposed to be the second since they had everything shot for it and they didn't push Loki forward. So,
right. And then they had the whole, yeah, I'm sure Falcon and the Winter Soldier got bumped back because they had to change the story so much.
yep.
But that aside, the WandaVision for me, it I was, and this is why it's in my top five, and is because every time it was coming out, like the day it was coming out, I was probably the most excited to watch that show. And it had been a long time since I had been that excited on a weekly basis to catch the next episode, right? To see what was going to happen, because it was a mystery. It was mimicking shows that I actually would watch as a kid. And now those shows like Bewitched and uh, Brady Bunch and I Dream of Jeannie and those things, those were old shows. Just so you guys don't think I'm that old, they were old shows when I was growing up, but I really liked watching them. And so when I would see those shows, it just the nostalgia of it just made it so much more um, like relevant and important and fun for me, that it was just anticipating for the next episode, right? And um, the mystery part of it, and it was just, I thought, really well done as well. And you're right, the stuff that came out of it with White Vision, which I'm still wondering where that's going to come back around, and when we'll see him, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure it'll be a year from now, or from 2 years from now, we'll see him pop up, and they're like, oh yeah, that's right, he was out there doing something. But I think I'm excited if I don't know, there's no way they can really, to me, I don't know how you can redo do another season of that, but um, I just wish I would love to see more of it. I just don't know how they would do that exactly. But
Yeah, it feels like it would almost be impossible to do. All right, so my number three is going to be Thor Ragnarok.
okay,
This is like the popcorn film, but also has so much going on in it. It is the continuation of this really interesting journey that we see Thor go on. And I think even that we see in Thor Love and Thunder, but Ragnarok just it has Jeff Goldblum. It has this 80s vibe to it. It does Planet Hulk a little bit, which is a fun comic book. I like the elements that they're bringing in of that. I like the elements of Surtur, Hell, and kind of the whole craziness that is this without having to do the time travel. Well, you could argue there's a little bit of that with Sakaar, just
yeah,
with when they show up. But to get to meet characters like Valkyrie in there as well, to have Bruce and Hulk kind of have a bigger role in a film, I thought was a lot of fun. And it's probably the easiest movie for me to just put on and watch whenever.
I agree. Yeah, this one did not fall into my top five, but it was. I thought about it quite a bit after Love and Thunder. I think I have a little bit of a bad taste. I don't know. Like, I still love Ragnarok. I think it's exactly what I want Thor movies to be. The comedic hits are good, and timing, but I think when Love and Thunder came out, like, Thor kind of dropped for me, and so I kind of and what it seemed to just pull Ragnarok right there with it. So you're right. If it comes on TV, honestly, my kids and I would always watch it. So it's a good choice.
All right, what's your number three?
Number three, this I feel like this is gonna be a heated debate, but I it's Civil War. I love Captain America Civil War, and I know it's not, there's holes in it, and you think they could have done a better job with things, and I totally agree, but I am a sucker for that airport scene. I don't it is, again, everything that I wanted when I was a kid. to see, and like it's just such an amazing scene, and I love the conflict between Captain and Iron Man, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers on two different sides. Both have very arguable points about what they're doing, and I love that headbutting conflict. Because I'm like, I'd go back and forth. I'm like, well, I totally see why Tony Stark is going with that, and it's a little bit based on fear, and but it makes sense, and I understand the accords and why those would be brought up because it's a good question. Why should superheroes have just do whatever they want and not have any ramifications for it and all that? But yeah, Captain's side is just as legit, I feel. And so, anyways, it was just such. It's just so much what I wanted, I think, out of a movie. So it was awesome. I'm gonna put it a
Yeah,
3.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I,
I
I
get
I agree with what you said too. When we had this discussion before about those holes and those plot things and how they could have done it better. So I agree. Nostalgia wins in this one for me though.
yeah, I'm gonna bring up my big beef with it is
Yes, fair.
it starts out with it starts out with the Sokovia Accords, which I think are actually very interesting. And then the fight feels like it ends up with it's less about the Sokovia Accords. It's Cap is only believes in Bucky, and that's where the conflict lies. And it's not, it feels like it's less nuanced than I want it to be. It feels like it's a fight over whether or not Bucky can actually be good again versus the Accords. Though I will agree 100% that airport scene, that fight is amazing. I just want a better, in my opinion, reason for it. But I
Yeah,
know I'm
I
in the minority with that.
well, I wish they would have kept it a little bit more heavier on the accords. I wish they would have. It feel like it got resolved in like kind of a, oh yeah, because well recently we just, oh yeah, the accords are gone, right? It's like
Yep.
that was like a big deal, and that it's such a strong modern day plot as well. Like and I wish they would have kind of like put more emphasis on that rather than moving it towards yeah, saving Bucky's saving face for Bucky instead. Instead of the accords and what those have to do with everybody. So,
Yeah.
all right, what are we at? Are we on number
Number
two?
two. My number two is going to be Endgame. I just, I love the time heist in this one. I love the coming back from losing. The thing that we've never seen happen in a superhero film before is the hero, well, arguably, it maybe has happened before, but in a Marvel film, we've never seen the hero lose and lose like horribly. And it just told such a fun story of coming back from that. The big battle was great. Everybody got their moment. Sometimes it felt forced, but everybody got their moment in that. And the whole time travel, I like that as a recap of this is where we've been over, I think at that point in time, it was 10 years. This is the story that we've had over 10 years. Here's some of the highlights, some of the pieces you may not know about or have forgotten about. And in the end, the heroes end up winning, but there's also still the cost for having won. It's it was just the grand culmination to everything we had watched for those first three phases, first 10 or 11 years.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna say number two is Endgame for me as well. Interesting. Amazing. We fell on the same part of the list for us. It it was yeah, it was almost everything. Like at first I'm like the time heist part was I love time heist. I love time travel stuff. I wasn't expecting necessarily that it would go that direction, I think, when I was sitting in the theaters watching it. And I had like just a slight sense of disappointment, I think, during it. Because I'm like, I feel like I've not seen this before, but I was like, is it going to be a time travel one where they jump around like that? And then, but I was okay with it. I think after just continuing to watch it and just how they lose, right? And And they eventually obviously win, which is great, obviously, and the end battle scene was great. The ups and downs are good. It was fun. It was funny. It was really heartfelt at times, right? So I agree. It too, like, just hit a lot of good points. It hit a lot of those heartstrings to comedy moments, and it to just wrap up all that they had been working towards. It was just very satisfying. So it landed number two for me.
So my number one is going to be Avengers Infinity War. That one, kind of what I was talking about at the with Endgame, is it wraps up and it picks up from them having lost. And Infinity War, to see them lose, to see not only them lose, but to lose badly, and also to see characters on the screen together for the first time. So to get to see the Guardians of the Galaxy interact with Doctor Strange, Peter Parker, and Tony Stark, that was fun. It felt so big, as it's something that, again, it's all been leading up to. This was the first part of it that kicked that whole thing off, and then just to have them lose in the end. And I knew they were going to lose in the end. I was
You did?
very confident, anyways. I did not have it
Okay.
like spoiled for me, but I was like, I fully expect Thanos to win at this, or maybe not as decisively as he does, but to have to have beaten down the heroes to the point where he can pull off the snap, because he does pull off the snap in the comics as well. So I was pretty sure that was going to
Fair. Yeah.
happen, but I wasn't expecting to see so many characters get dusted.
Yeah.
Like to have T'Challa get dusted when he's one of kind of the main or big players coming out of Civil War and out of Black Panther. To have him get dusted, but to have somebody under him stick around, it it was really interesting just how they picked and chose different characters to have survive or not. So that one, I think, just one of the best experiences. And it was also fun because I was sitting in the theater with my wife, and she did not expect that ending to happen. She did not expect that movie to end when it did, just for the reaction of the people in the theater watching that opening night to be like, wait, what? The movie just ended here with a clear stomping of all the superheroes? What is going on?
Yeah. So that puts me okay. So I'm saying my number one, same thing, oddly. Um, Infinity War. It's kind of obvious, right? I figured if Endgame is two,
Yeah.
it'd be crazy not to have Infinity War as number one. But that I mean I knew the story. I hadn't read the full comic through, but I knew that I knew that they were going to lose pretty bad, right? But I think that ending was just such a massive blow to every one of them, right? And the choices of the ones that got dusted, it was just large enough of an ending that it just left me, I guess, just waiting from that moment on for Endgame to happen. Like I couldn't wait for that year or whatever it was for Endgame to come through, because I was so excited for how they were gonna move forward from that snap, because I didn't, I guess I didn't expect the snap at the very end like that, and then the dusting, right? And just having to wait a year to find out what happened. So it was like one of the all-time best endings, I think, and I don't think they've. I'd be curious to see if they can top it in these next phases. But I hold it up there with like non-Marvel movies like Seven, and endings where I'm just like on the edge of my seat going, what just happened? And can I see this? Can I see it again? And when can I see the ending and what's going
All right. Well, this is going to be fun to try and edit down to
to
half an
happen?
hour,
Good luck.
but
I'll talk faster next time.
I think there are probably some pauses that I can cut out in
Yeah.
here. including this. But with that, thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully this was fun. Hopefully you'll enjoy the new format here with co-hosts. I know it's fun to talk Marvel for me instead of just be talking into a microphone, not necessarily getting immediate feedback on stuff. So Greg, welcome aboard. And yeah, I give a few ways at the beginning to help support the podcast. There's also a Patreon, patreon.com/nerdologists. This goes to help support the quality of this podcast as well as then other projects that I'm working on, such as the Malts and Meeples YouTube channel and nerdologist.com website. But with that, see you next time.